Hey guys, what's up? It's munclesonkey and welcome to my Nex tank guide. In this guide I will be showing you guys how to tank the boss Nex, and this guide will be more prioritized towards beginners, so I will be focusing more on how to get your first few Nex kills as a tank, or maybe learn a bit more if you're inexperienced with Nex tanking. So this guide will not be focused around how to do the absolute best damage possible while tanking, because that is something that you will learn through experience, but it is of course important to learn how to survive your kills and do them successfully before you worry about that. In addition to that, I will be using some lower level / cheaper gear than is the absolute best gear you can possibly use, so that people that perhaps don't have hundreds and hundreds of mil to spend on gear can also do this fairly successfully. And you don't have to have the best gear to tank Nex. You can do it with gear that you can buy off the GE for under 100 mil for your entire set, and it's very possible to be successful tanking Nex in that way. There will be a few things left out, such as scrimshaws, that are technically helpful but are also very, very expensive, and it's going to be painful if you die with them. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the gear setups and see what you need to bring to begin your Nex tanking. These are the two gear setups that I have in order to choose from. I will be showing a melee Nex tank kill as well as a magic Nex tank kill, and these are the two gear setups that will be worn. For melee, I have the Tetsu and the Drygores, as well as tank boots and gloves in the pneumatic and steadfast. I also have a sign of life equipped. If you are learning to Nex tank, it's very important to bring a sign of life. Unfortunately, you cannot make the portent of life without 99 divination, so you're going to have to stick with a sign of life unless you have that, in which case you can either wear a scrimshaw and have a portent of life in your inventory, or wear a sign of item protection to protect one extra item if you do happen to die twice. I also have the Amulet of Souls equipped with the melee, and the Amulet of Zealots equipped with the mage. Amulet of Zealots is definitely the best for damage. However, if your penance aura is on cooldown and you're wearing Amulet of Zealots, Nex will drain your prayer like crazy, so it can be nice to wear that Amulet of Souls, which does have the best stats of any amulet, in order to not have your prayer drained by ridiculous amounts when Nex is on ice phase. For the magic setup, I do have Virtus Wand and Book, which is by far the most affordable, decent dual wield option. Dual wield is nice to have because you will be using your shield for defensive abilities fairly often throughout the kill. It is possible to do with a staff such as a chaotic staff or an Armadyl battle staff. However, it will be much easier with using the dual wield, so I would recommend that. And of course, if you can afford seismics, those are definitely the best thing to use. For the magic, I also have the Sea Singers. For the Tetsu and Sea Singers, you can either craft your own if you have the required levels to do that in player-owned ports, or you can buy fully degradable versions from the GE, which are fairly cheap for the bonuses that they provide, and they do last about 10 hours in combat, which does take quite a while to degrade at Nex because you're not going to be in combat half the time when Nex is during the spawns. For the inventory, you're just going to want to have overloads, renewals, super restore flasks, lots of Ceridome and Brew flasks, as you will be going through a lot of food as you're learning to tank Nex. I would recommend to bring a range switch because this is going to be nice to help your partner or partners take out the minions, as well as a shield. It's better to have a chaotic shield than it is to have a corporal beast shield, because you will be using resonance, so you want to be hit hard by Nex during the resonance, and you don't want the corporal beast shield to lower the damage from those resonance heals. And you also want to have adrenaline potions in your inventory as well. Once you have all that, just fill your familiar with more brew flasks and rocktails, and you should be ready to go kill Nex. Before you head off to Nex itself, one thing I'd really recommend to do is, if you have completed the quest, the Ritual of the Majorite, you can head to a fairy ring and then punch in the code DKQ. This will bring you to the Glacor Cave, and then you will get a Stone of Jas damage boost, which will provide a damage inside the Glacor Cave and as well as all surrounding areas. I've been told this is about a 3 to 4% damage boost while at Nex itself, and although rather insignificant, you do want every single last bit of damage that you can. Then just teleport to Trollheim or to God War's Dungeon if you have completed the Mighty Fall quest, and equip your Shard of Zeros, another quest required for this, which is the Fate of the Gods. And the Shard of Zeros will make all monsters in the God War's Dungeon unaggressive to you. If you have not completed the Fate of the Gods, first of all, do it. And if you still really don't want to do it for whatever reason, you're going to have to wear either a Ceridoman item so you don't get destroyed by the Ceridoman dudes running, and then you will need some food as well, or you will need to equip a Nex item or an Ascension crossbow, which will protect you from the monsters. The nice thing about the Shard of Zeros, though, is it makes all of the Nex monsters unaggressive to you as well. The regular God War's Dungeon protection items do not do that. Finally, you do want to have a full set of Ancient Ceremony, and this will allow you to pass through the next door for free. And now you're finally ready to start your next kill. When starting off as a next melee tank on the smoke phase, you want to be praying melee when you start the kill, and you want to have the Incite ability on as well. This is under your hit points abilities, and this will make Nex focus you instead of your teammates, which is kind of the idea of being a tank. You want to use mostly basics during the smoke phase to build your adrenaline, and then you can throw in a destroy or an assault. When Nex says there is, unless one of your teammates uses it, you do want to use the slaughter ability, and this will triple the damage after she moves, and then you want to surge out of the middle of Nex because otherwise you get destroyed, so make sure that you do that. And then after that you can pray mage so that Nex doesn't hit you, and then pray melee again. As soon as Nex calls the first minion, you want to stand a few spaces away from Nex and pray mage, so she'll just hit you with mage and she'll continuously attack you while your teammate takes down the minion. While your teammate is taking down the minion, just make sure you use a few defensive abilities so that your adrenaline stays high. You can even turn off your magic prayer and throw in a resonance to heal a little bit if you do want to. Also make sure you're either using anticipate or freedom so that Nex does not drag you towards her and stun you and you get dealt unnecessary damage. As soon as your teammate has killed the minion, what you want to do is pray range, because Nex will be using range during this phase. Also, you want to make sure that you are not having any ranged style gear equipped at all, because if you do, Nex will try to melee you and will really screw you up in the shadow phase. So make sure that all your gear equipped is either melee style or magic style. Now once the shadow phase starts, you can pray soul split for the first part of it, and then just make sure you use some thresholds to get Nex down quickly. And as soon as you start running back and forth from Nex, put on your protect from range prayer, because then she will start to range you. And then you want to run back and forth attacking Nex again and again, just as you would as a melee DPS. And also every single time that Nex says fear the shadow, just make sure you step a couple spaces away so that you don't get hit by the shadow portals, and if you do, they do a lot of damage, so you want to be very careful with that. As soon as the next minion is called, you want to run to the eastern part of the area and stand like shown. Let your teammate or teammates focus on killing the minion, and your job is just to stand here. Make sure your adrenaline is at or near 100%, and also every single time she says fear the shadow, again, just make sure you're not standing on the shadow portals. You also want to zerk as soon as the minion is about to die, and then begin to build your adrenaline by using basics on Nex. And as soon as she siphons, you do want to get off, but you can build up your adrenaline to about 30 to 40% just by doing this. If you have a Ring of Vigor, make sure you switch into that now or have it equipped. And now as soon as she siphons, you want to pray magic and continue to build your adrenaline by using defensive abilities. And then once the siphon goes down, then you can use your assault and then your destroy, and this will do a lot of damage to Nex. If she does blood sacrifice you, which is rare as a tank, she will usually blood sacrifice the DPS or one of the DPSs. You can use the ability escape to get away from her so that Nex does not heal 10,000 HP. As soon as Nex has called Cruor, you do want to focus on either using basic abilities on Nex if you have 2 DPS, or you can help your teammate take down the minion if you only have 1. But you do want to make sure that you're entering the ice phase with 100% adrenaline. This is very important so that you don't get destroyed by the first ice prison. As soon as the minion goes down, you want to use the ability Anticipation, because this will keep you from getting stunned at the start of ice phase and will allow you to use abilities. If you do not get an Anticipation off as soon as you are frozen in the ice prison, use the ability Freedom. When the ice prison goes down, you want to equip a shield and use Barricade, or you can use Immortality if you are at low HP. Now you want to make sure you're building your adrenaline up, because you will be using another ultimate on the second ice prison, basically the ultimate that you did not use on the first one. When Nex says contain this, run away from her. If you use Anticipation, you will not be stunned by the icicles if they hit you. If you don't use Anticipation, you can get really destroyed by them. On the second ice prison, you can use Immortality, but if you are, again, really high HP, which isn't necessarily a bad idea to safe up on it, she will only hit you about 6 to 7k, and then you will not use your Immortality, but if she still kills you within the next 30 seconds, you will revive. After the second contain this goes down, Glacies should be about dead. You can, again, help your teammate out with killing Glacies. Just make sure you don't screw them over by standing right next to them, and then Nex does a contain this. Finally, when Glacies goes down, it's time for the Zeros phase. If your immortality is still active and you haven't used it yet, you can go ahead and turn off your protection prayers and let Nex kill you so that you can heal a little bit, and then you want to start the final phase by using either your ranged or your magic gear, whatever you happen to have as your switch, but you don't want to be using melee, as Nex will be doing a lot of protection of melee during this phase. Now you want to just stand within melee distance of Nex and protect from mage, and then you can use some defensive abilities here, or you can just focus on getting Nex down as fast as possible. If you're completely fine with food, I would recommend using your adrenaline on stuff like snapshot or rapid fire. However, abilities like devotion or resonance can be really nice as well if you aren't the best on food. One thing that you can do is you can switch into your shield and then turn off your protection prayers and use resonance, and Nex can sometimes hit up to 3,000 or 4,000 with her magic attacks, and that can be a very nice way to heal as well. Anyway, as long as you have some decent DPSers, Nex should go down very, very quickly on the Zeros phase, and you won't take too much damage if you are in player-owned ports armor and you are using protection from magic. Once the kill ends, if you have any adrenaline left over, just regenerate, or you can use an ultimate such as rejuvenate or Ice Asylum. And now we go into the mage tank kill, which is very, very similar to the melee tank kill. The only major difference is Nex can protect from magic sometimes. I would say magic is definitely the easiest way to learn how to tank Nex, but the problem with that is when Nex does pray against magic, then you can't do damage against her unless you switch into another style, and if that is on the shadow phase, then you can't switch into the protect from range style, so that can make things a little bit tricky. If you do get stunned during the smoke phase, which can happen when your anticipation wears off, you just want to make sure you use freedom to get out of that stun and then get out of the middle of the next area, because otherwise you can be hit by her. There is no escape when she charges, which will do very high damage, and you want to avoid that if at all possible. As soon as the minion is called, you want to run out of the middle just like during the melee kill, and then just stand to the south of your partner while they do the damage to the minion and get them down. Now, during the shadow phase, one thing to watch out for when mage tanking is, first of all, you want to make very, very sure, it's a little bit easier to get caught in the trap of not realizing that Nex has done a shadow portal, but make sure you're watching for the words overhead, and when she says, fear the shadow, walk 1 or 2 spaces away to make sure you don't be hit by that shadow portal. And also, you just want to be using your threshold abilities during this phase and not your ultimates, because you do want to save adrenaline for the blood phase, of course, especially if you're in a duo. You want to make very sure if Nex does pray against magic, which does happen sometimes during the shadow phase, that you never switch into any range gear, because if you do, Nex will melee distance you and then you'll be hit by some very, very strong bleeds during the shadow phase, and you want to avoid that at all costs because that can really eat through your food. Once again, when the minion is called, just run to the eastern part of the area and keep Nex right around here. When you are maging, you want to use the ability Sunshine, and you want to stand within melee distance of Nex, if at all possible, and pray magic against her. And you want to be praying magic so that she doesn't do too much damage, and heal off of the blood phase. And then just build up your adrenaline. Make sure you use some thresholds within your Sunshine, such as Wild Magic and Asphyxiate can do a whole lot of damage. And once again, if you are called for a blood sacrifice, you want to use the ability Escape to get out of there. As soon as the minion is called, you want to switch into your crossbows if you happen to have any, and then take down the minion, or help your partner take down the minion as soon as possible. And you want to make sure you're going into that ice phase with 100% adrenaline, because you want to be able to free yourself from that first ice prison and use a barricade. So switch into your shield as soon as the ice prison goes down and barricade, or you can immortality again if you are on very low HP, and then you can get a nice heal from that as well. It's up to you. And then Nex will contain fairly soon after that, after about 5 attacks, so you want to make sure you use anticipation. You can get hit by the icicles if Nex does choose to melee distance you, but as long as you have the anticipation, the icicles will not freeze you, so that's why you want to use that, because otherwise the icicles will make it unable for you to eat. On the second prison, if you are below 6,000 HP, just freedom and then use the ability Immortality with your shield equipped. If you are above that, you want to freedom and then use a couple brews to make sure your health is high, so that Nex can't instantly one bang you after the ice prison hit goes down. And after this, there may be one more contain, or if not, just immediately go into the final phase, which is the Zeros phase, which is going to be really, really easy if you're in magic gear, because you'll have good melee defense, and then you can pray mage. During the Zeros phase, if you aren't doing the best on food and you don't want to use your 100% adrenaline on Sunshine to get the phase down slightly faster, because you're not going to be doing a ton of damage with tier 80 magic weapons and without power armor gear anyway, one thing you can do is just wait for your health to drop a little bit and then use the ability Immortality, which is what I ended up doing here. Another thing that's very important to do is during the phase, as soon as you have Resonance ready to use, take off your protection from Magic Prayer and use Resonance, and you can get some of those 3k, sometimes even up to 4k heals from Nex, because she does hit very hard with those magic attacks. Unfortunately here, Nex just was not able to hit, and my Immortality never ended up going off because of that, but the kill still went fairly smoothly. As long as you're okay on food, feel free to use lots of wild magics and asphyxiates to get Nex down a little bit quicker, and the kill should be done after that. That's all from my Nex tank guide. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I did want to say thank you to Ceyt, aka Cheerio, who provided the melee tank footage during this video, as well as the melee DPS footage during the Nex DPS guide, and a link to that DPS guide is going to be on screen as well in the description, and a link to his channel in the description, and he helped me out a lot with making these guides, so I do appreciate that. Unfortunately, I did have to provide the mage tank footage myself, and I'm not the best mage tank, so hopefully that one was bearable, but the main idea was just to show the basic mechanics of the fight and how it's going to look like as a mage tank. With that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Farewell.